Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Konnichiwa, and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party. This past week was a turbulent time for moviegoing in cinemas, with Regal and Cineworld taking the decision to close again following the announcement that No Time to Die has pushed back to April 2021. However, one bright light in the darkness came in the form of film Twitter coming together on the final 2 days before the closures to all seem to go and collectively watch Akira on the big screen in a new 4K remastered edition. So with a lack of new releases, today we are heading back to 1988, or is that 2019 in Neo Tokyo, to discuss this anime classic. I'm Dallas King, and with me as always is the Tetsuo to my Kaneda. It's Lee Hutchison. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks.
Good. So before we sort of dive into the film, what did you make of the, I guess, slightly inevitable news that over here in the UK, Cineworld were going to close doors once again following the Bond announcement? Because certainly for UK, I think the Bond thing came out of nowhere, actually, because up until the announcement from America that they were pushing back to April, it was all guns blazing on the promotional trail, dropping podcasts, Billie Eilish videos, and all such, wasn't it?
Yeah, everything is on record these days, whether it's social media, podcasts, Facebook updates. And I was quite passionate about the fact that, don't worry everyone, James Bond is coming. You know, they were the first studio to kind of cancel their film and push it back to kind of November. They know how to make sort of quick decisions, which is really good. And then, as you say, the past few weeks, everything was kind of coming together. We had podcasts, we had advertising campaigns, new trailers, books coming out, Daniel Craig on Saturday Night Live. Everything was saying this film is coming. And I put up a tweet that said, I'm 100% sure. I didn't even put 99.9, give myself wiggle room, like I was like 538 predicting like a Clinton victory. I was like 100% in that it was going to happen. And I went into the cinema. I went to see the trial of Chicago 7. And then I came out to find that tweet had been quoted by one of my friends laughing at it. So I was like, oh no, it's happened, hasn't it? And unfortunately it has, and the consequences of it, I think even the most negative or fearing the worst person probably wouldn't have anticipated.
It was a shock to see them push it back, but I mean, it was the last thing standing between cinemas closing until at least Christmas, I think, and, you know, saving cinema. I mean, now we have a new saviour in the form of Saint Maud. It's nice to see Studio Canal picking up the baton and running with it as it got released this weekend. But, I mean, I can see, you know, anytime I've been to Cineworld or whatever, it's been a handful of people in a screening and stuff like that. So I can understand their business point of view. It's just really disappointing, and everyone's sort of pointing fingers, you know, is it the distributors, is it the cinemas? I mean, obviously, you know, not to get too political, but really it comes from the government down and not giving the support to allow businesses to basically support their staff and close up until this whole thing gets better. Because clearly, I mean, Bond thought, you know, give it, 6-7 months, everything will hopefully be back to normal, and then we'll be able to watch a movie in the cinema again. That didn't happen, so they've pushed back again. But, you know, we've talked about this on other podcasts, so I guess we can sort of leave it there. But it is a disappointment. But, you know, we all did go. Pretty much everyone on my timeline seemed to go and see Akira. You know, Edgar Wright was seeing it for about the 47th time or something at Picture House Central and stuff like that. So it was the last chance to use the because actually Cineworld as well didn't think they were closing, because up until like Friday morning they were sending out freebie vouchers for free popcorn and nachos and a free Akira IMAX upgrade, which it seems everyone cashed in on the final day. I believe you got your free snacks as well, and quite interestingly, this was your first ever viewing of Akira, was it not?
Yeah, it was always something that felt out of reach, to be honest with me, with Akira, where it was always one of those, it always felt like a prestige DVD that it was always £15, £20. You could never sort of pick it up. Oh, look, it's £5, £6 in FOP in the sale or anything like that. It's never been on sort of streaming services as far as I'm aware here in the UK. It's always been one of those ones I've like been aware of it, even aware of sort of its influence. I'll always remember sort of that poster or DVD cover with, you know, your chap from the film and a bike, and it's always like, oh, that is interesting. I'll maybe watch that one day. And I'd kind of planned to see it. I'm in the middle of 2 weeks off work at the moment, and I was like, yeah, I'll go along and finally check out Akira. And then when Cineworld were really generous with their offer of a free IMAX upgrade ticket, I was like, you know what, this is my moment. This will be my swan song from the cinema, and I'll finally go check it out, kind of address that missing frame in my life, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, sadly, I was not able to see it in IMAX because Aberdeen does not have one. Rather annoyingly, it was announced, I think, in February that the Beach Cineworld here was going to actually build an IMAX screen. I don't think that's ever going to happen now, but never mind. So I was able to see it in the 4K remastering. I felt bad hassling Cineworld staff on the Monday at the Cineworld preview when I was like, is it going to be in 4K here? And someone went through and went, no, it's on in a 2K screen. So I basically then cancelled my ticket and went to the view where it was on in 4K. But Akira itself is set in Neo Tokyo 2019. The city has been rebuilt post-World War III. Kaneda and Tetsuo, two high school dropouts, stumble on a secret government project to develop new weapons, telekinetic humans. Tetsuo learns of the existence of his peer, Akira, the project's most powerful subject, and determines to challenge him. So, I guess you've sort of said that you were aware of the film, you knew the poster and stuff like that, but probably weren't too familiar with the story and stuff like that. I guess, what was your sort of first reaction on exiting the screen after Akira?
It's difficult. I wish I could have viewed it in isolation, but being sort of like a sci-fi fan, it's hard not to watch a film like this and see where all the influences have come from on things like The Matrix, Isle of Dogs, Chronicle, Looper. You know, I've only seen some of Stranger Things, but even on that, like, the influence of Akira goes far and wide, and I found it hard not to watch certain scenes or moments or beats and go, oh, I bet Edgar Wright was inspired by that. Oh, I saw the Rian Johnson thing there. Oh, Wes Anderson there. You know, so many different bits. It was like watching kind of in a way, not to probably inflate its thoughts, but it was almost like reading the Bible and then sort of going, oh, now I can see where all this influences on sort of popular culture, literary influences have all kind of come from. It's come from this one kind of holy text, as it were.
I like that description, yeah. I've seen this film several times. I think I watched it for the first time when I did, about 10, 11 years ago, when I did 500 Films of Empire, and I got a copy of then on DVD and watched it at home. I think I've been lucky enough to see it, I think, once before on the cinema. I think it got a re-release about maybe sort of 5 years ago, and yeah, it's just an incredible sort of piece of animation, and like you say, it's hugely influential, I think, in terms of creating that sort of neo-noir, sort of tech-noir aesthetic. You could look between sort of Blade Runner and Akira sort of being these two films which have had the biggest influence on the science fiction genre, not just animation, but yeah, like you say, you can see it in so many other films and stuff like that. But in terms of, I guess, the story, it's quite a bizarre and complex story. I mean, it was adapted by Katsuhiro Otomo from his own manga series, which had been running for several years, and he actually wrote and directed this film while finishing the series. The series didn't actually complete until after this film came out. So, you know, obviously it's a very wide, far-reaching story. You can sort of see there's sort of subplots there with sort of political corruption and stuff like that, the rivalries between biker gangs and stuff, and it's really been sort of condensed down into this sort of 2 hour sort of story. But I mean, were you able to follow the story okay? Because it is quite out there, especially when it gets into the sort of final act.
Yeah, it's quite a sprawling kind of story. It was one of those ones, like, I thought it was going in a certain direction. Like, I was like, you kind of watch at the beginning. There's this sort of nuclear blast that takes place, and I thought, oh, it'll be interesting to sort of see about how these people have coped in this sort of dystopian kind of future. What were the influences of World War Three and so on. I didn't expect it to kind of go in the direction that it did, sort of about this kind of central conflict. You know, I expected there to be a lot of motorbiking. There certainly was a lot of that. And it wasn't the film I kind of expected. Like, I was amazed how little I actually did know about the kind of film going in, apart from some of that iconography and sort of watching things and getting a feeling that, oh, this must have come from that Akira film that I've sort of seen here and there kind of in backgrounds and kind of Tumblr back in the day. And, you know, it certainly, I was born in '87, so just a year before this film, but it somehow wasn't part of my generation. It felt like, I think maybe the sort of generation just before mine sort of seemed to kind of connect with Akira a little bit more than me. So yeah, I was surprised how little I knew, and kind of really went in blind to this. I mean, if we were doing this as like a Missing Frames with Sean, and he always asked the question like, what do you know about this film, I'd be like, there's the motorbike poster, and that's not that much, is it?
Yeah, it's the one that Kanye West did inspired the video for. I think it was Stronger. Not only did he rip off Daft Punk, but he also ripped off Akira for that video where he's sort of bounding down the hall with the sort of rags over his eyes and stuff like that. So, I mean, it even influences pop stars and stuff like that. So, you know, that's when, you know, you've got a cultural hit movie, I think. And I mean, what was it like sort of seeing? I mean, this 4K animation, the animation like on the IMAX screen. I was wondering, did it make full use of the IMAX ratios, or was it still just, I guess, sort of standard sort of 235 in just on the IMAX screen?
It's one of those things. I'm always terrible. We've discussed this before. I'm always terrible at picking up like aspect ratio changes, etc. Until maybe like a repeat viewing, or when I've read about the film and then I kind of go back and watch it. So I'm really not too sure. I mean, what I can say was it was a really great film to kind of watch in IMAX, and I'm sure it's probably the same for you. But that doesn't look like a film that is nearly 32 years old or 30. You know, it looks stunning. And you know, you watch some of these Disney movies and you think, you know what an amazing effort they made, you know, whether it's Fantasia or Sleeping Beauty, etc., to put something like that together, you know, in all those different circumstances before computers, all hand drawn. You know, watching kind of the scope and scale, the colors, the direction it goes in, the science fiction elements, I was absolutely stunned at how modern this film kind of looked, and the effort that they must have gone into to make that film.
Yeah, I guess, well, in terms of modern, I guess it, you know, it was filmed 31 years ago. 32 years ago now. But actually, it says 31 years in the film. That's what I was thinking, 31 years. But 2019, and so technically it's 32 years now. But I mean, yeah, you're saying it looks like it was filmed yesterday, essentially, and I guess then they did a good job of making it feel very 2019. Obviously, Blade Runner is the other sort of big film that was set in 2019. Obviously, we don't have replicants and, you know, flying cars and stuff like that, but this one does feel like, I guess, it could happen if, you know, society was at one point on the brink of collapse, and, you know, this World War III, which they talk about, which I think is essentially just a cover for the fact that basically Akira caused an explosion, which then started the whole thing, and then it was sort of talked about as a bomb instead, to just try and cover that up, because clearly the Tokyo government there are up to some sort of mischief and shenanigans and stuff like that. But I've got a fact here. So yeah, the movie itself consists of 2,212 shots, and that is made up of 160,000 single frames of animation, 2 to 3 times more than usual, using 327 different colours, 50 of which were exclusively created for the film. So there you go. And the reason for that is apparently most of the movie takes place at night, so they had to create some new sort of colours in order to make things sort of pop in the nighttime background. So there we go. So yeah, I mean something like this, like you say. I mean, when I watched it on the 4K, it was like you wouldn't have been able to tell that this was made in 1988. I certainly could when I got the original DVD of it, because yeah, the copy was not great. I think it was Young Magazine sort of did the initial remastering, probably a 2K one, back in about 2015. That's when you could really sort of see it sort of coming back to life. But yeah, it's just to sort of see on the big screen. And was the audience receptive? Was it a busy audience for the IMAX one? Because this would have been one of the final sort of screenings, wasn't it?
The caveat is yes and no. I mean, it's I don't know about you, but it can be very frustrating, and I really feel for places at the moment where obviously there has to be a gap of 2 to 3 seats for people kind of watching films from groups, and some people you feel like going, well, if you kind of sat there, like there's ways to maximize getting the correct amount of audience in. I think some people are picking kind of wrong seats, which means that there's like people are maybe having to miss out. So it was as full as it can be. I think there was a few people that didn't show up ultimately based on sort of I struggled to get a good seat when I booked in. But then when the film kind of started, I was able to sort of move around while still keeping that kind of 3-seat gap to kind of a better spot on the row, which was kind of nice. But yeah, for a Thursday at 2:30 in the afternoon, it was pretty busy, but with the caveat that the reality was it was a dead kind of screening in a way.
Yeah, it's the new caveat I've been seeing, keeping up to date with like the film house in Belmont, sort of celebrating sold out screenings in inverted commas and stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, we filled all our available seats, and it's like, well, technically that's about 12. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess you've got to take the victories where you can. But I think our friend Awais was saying that I think when he saw it at the IMAX on Thursday evening, the final show, and it was sold out again there. And also, I think they'd sold out like St. Maud and stuff like that. And he was like, "Keep cinemas open." It's like, yeah, too little, too late. Boris Johnson telling everyone to go to the cinema once the cinemas have already closed. Always got their finger on the pulse, the government, haven't they? So, I mean, sort of talking about, I mean, we can talk into sort of spoilers and stuff like that because the film is 32 years old and stuff. The final sort of crazy battle where Tetsuo and Kaneda sort of face off, where Tetsuo basically sort of morphs into a gelatinous mechanical blob and stuff like that, and threatens to basically destroy everything because he can no longer control his power. What did you make of that when it started happening?
It was one of those ones I think, like, I was watching it and I thought, right, the film is going to climax with this battle where they had the lasers going off in sort of this desolate kind of space, and so I thought, right, that's the climax of the film. The reality is it wasn't the climax. When it gets to sort of this sports stadium, it kind of just seemed to kind of go in a direction that I didn't anticipate. I thought he was going to have things were going to reverse, that he was going to stop being this huge gelatinous individual that was seen to be sucking in everyone. And I've seen probably cartoons where I thought, I was watching that thing and like, oh yeah, I can see that that's influenced something maybe like a Ghostbusters cartoon or something along those lines. So yeah, it was a very unexpected climax, but it was moments like that where I thought the animation there is absolutely stunning. Like every little detail of this huge supersized human blob has got so much detail. I was blown away.
Yeah, and of course the climax takes place in the to be finished Olympic Stadium in Tokyo, where this film was made in 1988, probably written about 86, 87, and somehow correctly predicted that Tokyo was supposed to have held the Olympic Games in 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen this year because of COVID, and it's probably fair to say that due to the events in Akira, it probably wasn't going to take place in Tokyo the year after either. So there you go. It could see the future. Amazing. It was so ahead of its time. It knew exactly what was going to happen. So there we go. So I mean, has this sort of film sort of piqued your interest in terms of other sort of animes? And because I was looking up, I was going to call it manga at one point, but then I remembered that manga is sort of Japanese cartoons in the written form and sort of drawn form, and then anime is specifically referred to for the animation, so the sort of moving image of Japanese sort of drawings and stuff like that. So, does it sort of encouraging you to sort of seek out other sort of anime classics, maybe like Ghost in the Shell and stuff like that? Because I know you're a big fan of Your Name, wasn't it? But the sort of modern sort of, I mean, obviously everyone sort of knows the Studio Ghiblis and stuff like that, but there are sort of the other studios out there sort of doing slightly more on the, I guess, not adult as in rude, but adult, grown up sort of anime sort of adventures.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things like it's just not my kind of genre that really kind of grips and grabs me. Like I really enjoy Japanese cinema. I really like the Studio Ghibli kind of movies, but it's one of those things I've not even got around to watching sort of the problematic Ghost in the Shell remake. So it's one of those things. It's not high on the agenda at the moment to kind of dive more into that film. I know there's people out there that are just so passionate about it, and I've always known people that love it, are always quick to maybe recommend a DVD or a film, but it's just something I've never kind of resonated with. I seem to sort of have a bit of a barrier to it. I don't think it's to do with the animation. It's maybe to do with the tone or things like that. But with something like Your Name, for example, I think that was something I loved. You know, Akira I enjoyed, but with something like Your Name, I was able to sort of emotionally invest in the characters, the story, the humor. I found Akira quite a bit straight faced and so on, and it was just something that just didn't resonate with me the way that something like Your Name did, which, while I think of it as having an amazing animation and visually really interesting, it was kind of the story at the heart of it that kind of gripped me a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is a bit of an emotional disconnect with the sort of two main characters, because you're kind of almost sort of thrown in immediately into this sort of bike chase, and then Tetsuo's kidnapped and stuff like that, and then Kaneda's trying to save him from that. But you don't spend a lot of time with the characters beforehand. There's sort of flashbacks to their time and sort of growing up in a kid's home together and stuff like that. But I guess, I mean, one wonders if there might have been greater scope if it had been like an animated series, maybe sort of like an 8-part, 10-part sort of thing where you can go into a lot more detail. Because obviously there's hinted at there was a breakout where the sort of, I guess it would have been labelled terrorist by the Tokyo government, but this sort of group who were trying to liberate these sort of kinetically, telepathically enhanced humans from the hospital and the experiments that were being done on them and stuff like that. So, I mean, there maybe is a potential to do like a Watchmen style limited series of something like this. But I guess one of the big things that is always talked about in Hollywood, well, basically ever since this was released, was, they've always talked about a live action remake, a US version of it set in America, or even trying to do a version set in Tokyo and stuff like that. I think over the years, there's been many people mooted. I remember at the moment, I think, is it Taika Waititi has been attached, but before that, I think there was meant to be a version with Leonardo DiCaprio and Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Tetsuo and Kaneda, but that was even when both of them were probably in their 30s or 40s, and this is meant to be sort of like 16-year-old kids. So, I mean, God knows how they would attempt to do that now, but I mean, given that you've probably seen all the rumours about the live-action remakes. Having seen it now, can you understand why it's never happened yet?
100%. I mean, we're talking about it. The design element of that film is second to none, and I don't know how, even if they animated it alone, how they would top what they did. I think it would be pretty impossible. I think it's one of those ones. I think if you were to attempt to make a live action remake of it, the budget would just be so unruly, and I'd like to say that Hollywood is going to maybe have to think twice about sort of huge big budget films in light of everything that's kind of going on just now and how hard it's going to be to recoup money. Then obviously you get the Cleopatra news yesterday, which is like, oh my god, here we go again. But no, I don't see how you can better this film and so on. I think a live action one would be really interesting, but it's just not gonna. I can't see it. And with the technology's there's no dispute about it. But no, I can't. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, I don't think. I think just that whole sort of sequence where Tetsuo morphs into the final sort of version of himself. I mean, that alone would probably out budget many sort of small budget films that could be made in its place. And one would argue, do we need a live action remake? I don't think we do. Like you say, I think it's perfect as it is. But I mean, I think you're unlimited in what you can do when essentially you're putting pen to paper. You can draw anything because like you don't have a budget, so to speak. You can just basically you're limited by your own imagination, and I guess you can do that now. Obviously, it costs a lot more doing sort of Pixar style animation or even just traditional animation. It costs a lot more to be able to put together. But I think you're unlimited in your scope to do with that. I think like you say, the budget would be so obscene for someone like this that it would never be able to make back its money, particularly in post-COVID times as well. So I think I'm happy that it's never sort of happened yet, and I think it will be unlikely to happen in the future. I mean, I guess someone like Taika Waititi maybe would have a good a shot as any at trying to put something on the big screen, but I don't think he can. I mean, I guess in the meantime we've got to make do. I'll be interested to see the Your Name live action remake, which is being done by a Korean director, the director of Minari. So that one I'll watch, but again, I just don't think you're going to be able to top or better it, especially if it's as if it's being produced by America and it's transplanted to America. If it's set in Tokyo and then replaced with Western characters, then you get into dodgy sort of Ghost in the Shell situations where you're whitewashing and stuff like that. Personally, I kind of didn't mind the Ghost in the Shell remake. I think the casting of Scarlett Johansson actually weirdly made sense in relation to a plot point about the original character, and I think it kind of worked. But obviously, I think I was in the minority on that one.
Yeah, I think that's probably safe to say.
So, yeah, unfortunately, I guess if you were unable to see Akira on the big screen in the past couple of days, you're probably unlikely to see it on the big screen in the future. I think it was a very limited engagement, but I guess there's a chance it will always be picked up by some other sort of chains. Perhaps Odeon and View might give it a longer run because I think it'd be interesting to see how it did at the UK box office. The figures probably should be coming through today. We're actually recording at 9:30 on a Monday morning, which is very odd for us because we're both on holiday and got a break from films from the London Film Festival. So, I mean, obviously not to give it away because we're going to be talking about that in a future episode. But how are you finding your London Film Festival adventure so far?
Yeah, it's been okay. It's just not the same. That's the reality of it all. I mean, the films are good. There's been some real standouts, but it's been hard not to kind of feel like it's missing some of these feels like a lot of these kind of films feel like the ones that you'd be watching in the afternoon, kind of everyone splits off and goes see them. There's missing some of those kind of bigger releases that get you excited, and sort of some of the films that are kind of up and coming that are going to be kind of that maybe just come straight from places like Toronto and New York. Well, there's a lot of good films. There's a lot that when you look at what's just been screened at New York Film Festival, like French Exit, for example, you're like, why is that not here? Or even things as a bit silly as like we've seen it because we've got like access to American iTunes, but why is there not like a First Cow, for example, to showcase to UK audiences? It or it just feels, or Green Knight, for example. There's just a lot that feels like it could have been here or would have been nice to have seen. The second week looks a bit better than the first, but there was a film last week where it was like it'd been sort of the closing film of the Irish Film Festival, and usually it's a bit more sort of new and fresh, the type of films that you're getting with London Film Festival. This feels kind of a bit of a mishmash at the moment. So grateful we have it, and the access it's afforded to press and so on, but it's just not been the same. I miss hanging out with my buddies.
Yeah, it's really difficult to recreate that sort of standing outside the Odeon Leicester Square at 6:30 with quality McDonald's coffee and a handful of hash browns, sort of talking about film in the morning. I guess we could try and do it over Zoom, But again, it probably wouldn't have the same effect. I think I have to admit I am kind of struggling at the moment because due to the setup, I'm unable to watch them on my Chromebook. So I've basically been watching everything on my iPhone, and I know I've seen people sort of rave about certain films, and I've just come away sort of going, and I don't know if it's the fact I'm just watching it on a phone. It's not the way you should be doing a festival. But we'll get into that next week because we'll be doing our full roundup then and picking out our highlights from the festival then. But in the meantime, we always do a weekly recommendation, something we've been enjoying that hasn't been part of the festival. This week, what have you enjoyed?
I'm really enjoying it. I know I seem to recommend these sorts of things quite frequently at the moment, but I've discovered a podcast that I've absolutely just blitzed through the 6 episodes that have been released so far just now, and it's called All the Asians in Star Trek, where it's one of those things. I just think it's such a unique concept where Phil Yu, a popular Asian actor, interviews people that played big roles and minor roles in Star Trek that have an Asian background, and it's really interesting to kind of hear about their experiences on the franchise. But it reminds me of what we try and sort of do on the A24 project, where it's like you starred or were involved in this one thing, let's talk about that, but let's also kind of dive into sort of your career, what things have been like and how you kind of got there. And I think it does something really well and really unique, and I'm really enjoying it. The conversations have been fantastic and really insightful. So yeah, that would be my recommendation, something you can find on Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your shows.
Absolutely, yeah. And I am going to pick this week. I'm very late to the party with this, but me and my wife have started watching it on Netflix, and it is just a warm, fuzzy feeling we're getting watching it. Everything can be very depressing at the moment, but this is funny and sweet and warm, and it is Schitt's Creek. And yes, I know it's all 6 seasons have finished. It won all the Emmys. It feels like you're sort of glory hunting at this point and jumping on the bandwagon after it's already won the title or something like that. But everyone sort of raved about it to me, and we finally start watching it, and it is really just a joy to be watching something just nice and warm and fluffy at this point in time. And we're it's season 5 out of 6 now, and we're probably going to finish it in the next couple of days, and then we'll be back to watching depressing documentaries about the state of the world or something like that. But in the meantime, we've got this is just great, and it's just nice to see Eugene Levy and stuff, and Catherine O'Hara. Her pronunciation is a gift onto the world. Every word she says is pronounced in such a way that it's just brilliant. And I remember seeing a tweet recently that someone said Eugene Levy is going to win an Oscar in his old age for playing Scorsese in a biopic at some point. And now I can see that, and I want to see that movie now. I think that would be great. But yeah, no, that is my recommendation of the week. And just going to give a quick shout out to another podcast, and that's our podcast, the A24 Project, which is back up and running. Kind of, anyway. We recently reviewed On the Rocks because it was in cinemas, and will be on Apple TV from the 23rd of April. But not 23rd of April, 23rd of October. You see, the year's going away from me. I've got no idea what time of the year it is. But Lee, you were lucky enough to visit a preview screening of Saint Maud, run by Massive Cinema, and happened to pick up a couple of extra tote bags, didn't you, that we are giving away to anyone who leaves a written review for the A24 project on iTunes. So yeah, do you want to give a tease as to what they might expect if they were lucky enough to win the
Yeah, it'll be. Let me have a wee glance at the picture, because it's one of those ones. It's a nice little thing. It's like Saint Maud. It's got some crosses round it, and on the back, it's not the Tenant campaign. It says "Your Savior is coming," and it's not just an exciting tote bag. You can also get a sticker set. So you can merch up your MacBooks and notepads and spice up your working from home setup. So yeah, we've got four extra ones to give away. So thanks to everyone that's taken part so far. So yeah, we'll keep it running for another week or two, and then we'll do the draw. Excellent.
So yeah, you got a couple of weeks to write a 5-star review. Obviously, we'll draw the names out of the hat. We won't go by just how much over elaborate praise you give us. We'll do it in a fair measured manner for picking our winners. So everyone can enter that and win. And we'll be back next week with our favourite films of the London Film Festival. But until the meantime, we'll see you soon.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.